My grandmother stood at just about 5 feet tall, small in frame, but somehow the most steady presence in every room she entered. She had soft brown skin and deep dark eyes that could melt your heart, but also keep you in line with a single look. There was something about her gaze, firm but full of love, that made you feel both seen and heard at the same time. My earliest memories of her are all the same: steady, grounded, sustained. She moved through life with a quiet knowing of God, a kind of inner stillness I didn't have language for as a child, but now as an adult, I marvel. I see now that her pace wasn't accidental, it was intentional. One of her favorite hymns talked about traveling with Jesus through life. It spoke about journeying on land and sea and looking forward to the final move, the move to the sky, up to heaven on high. The stillness I sensed in her, the peace I couldn't name, came from a woman who lived with heaven in mind. So let me ask you gently, as I ask myself, is heaven your goal? Is heaven your goal? Because when life feels like it's moving faster than your soul can keep up with, that's usually a sign, not of failure, but of invitation. An invitation to return to God's pace. An invitation to make heaven your aim again. There is a moment in Scripture that speaks directly to this feeling. But before we go there, let me ask you something else. What comes to mind when you think about living unhurried? What comes to mind when you think about living unhurried? When people think about slow living or unhurried living, they imagine a certain kind of life. A mind that isn't racing, a spirit that isn't bracing for the next thing, a sense of moving through the day instead of the day moving them. They picture paying attention to what's in front of them, enjoying small ordinary moments, morning routines that feel gentle, and evenings that wind down instead of crashing. They imagine their shoulders not tight, breathing deeper, moving slower, eating without rushing. They imagine living intentionally, choosing what matters, letting go of what drains them, and living with heaven as the final move. And all this is attainable. But what happens when you are a mother of littles? You're working full time, you're running a business, you are a wife, a homeschooler, you're homemaking, you're doing laundry and more laundry, serving in ministry, walking through sickness, or carrying hardship. Even though my grandmother's time was different, she was surrounded by demands too. She knew hardship, she knew responsibility, she knew pressure. So if you are tempted to think this unhurried way is not for me, take courage, because you are in good company. There is no one who was more pressed, more pulled, more demanded of than Jesus. He healed the sick, taught multitudes, discipled 12 young men, confronted darkness, fulfilled prophecy, and rose from the grave to redeem you and me. Yet he never rushed. Jesus lived with constant demands pressing in on him. Yet he moved through every moment without a trace of hurry externally or internally. And Mark 6 gives us such a vivid picture of this. In Mark 6, starting in verse 30, the disciples come back from an intense stretch of ministry. They're worn out, stretched thin, and surrounded by people who need something from them. Scripture even notes that the crowds were coming and going so much that the disciples didn't have a moment to eat. Jesus looks at them with compassion and says, "Come away with me and rest." Jesus doesn't say, "Work harder." He doesn't say, "Push through." He doesn't say, "You should have been able to handle this." He says, "Come away with me and rest." From this, we see three rhythms that help us slow down when life becomes too full, too loud, or too hurried. Three rhythms that will keep heaven as our goal, just as my grandmother did. Rhythm number 1, create space. Come away. This is the rhythm of margin. Margin is that quiet place between what you have to do, all you have to do, and your limits. It's the moment you pause before saying yes. It's the breath you take before you react. It's the choice to leave room for God to move. Practically, this might look like stepping outside for 2 minutes for fresh air, putting your phone in another room, or giving yourself permission to do one thing at a time. You don't have to escape your life to create the space. You just need to move slowly enough or have a moment to step outside of the noise. Rhythm number 2, practice presence with me. Jesus didn't just invite the disciples to rest. He invited them to rest with Him. Presence is choosing to be fully here, not in the next task, not in tomorrow's worries, not in yesterday's regrets, just here. Practically, presence might look like taking an honest inventory of your life. Where can you ask for help? Are there assignments you've taken on that God never asked you to carry? How are you spending the 168 hours God gives us each week? What remains after these questions is the life God has actually assigned to you to steward. Mothering the littles, the full-time job, the business you run, the marriage you nurture, the homeschooling, the homemaking, the laundry, more laundry, the ministry you serve, the sickness you are walking through, the hardship you are carrying, the single mom life you are nurturing. This is your life, and you are called to live it unhurried and unafraid, just as Jesus did. When you begin to see your 168 hours as a weekly gift, and you remember that Jesus is with you in every moment, the result is a slower, steadier, more grounded pace. Rhythm number 3, rest a while. Receive rest. Rest is not something you earn, it's something you receive. From our text, the disciples didn't schedule a retreat, they didn't plan a Sabbath, they didn't even ask for rest. Jesus offered it. I love Mark 6:32-34 because it shows us something beautiful. Jesus and the disciples intentionally withdraw for rest, a moment away from the noise. But life doesn't pause. Scripture tells us that a crowd gets there before Jesus does. The quiet place fills up before they even arrive. And Jesus, instead of frustration, instead of hurry, responds with compassion. Not because the demands disappear, but because his heart is anchored, heaven was his goal. Practically, rest might look like going to bed 20 minutes earlier, dividing the laundry over multiple days, choosing the slower option instead of the efficient one. It might look like creating touch points in your home, little reminders that turn your attention to God, little reminders that turn your attention toward heaven or final destination. A verse on the bathroom mirror, a candle you'll only light when you pray, a chair that becomes your quiet place, a plant you water slowly as a moment of gratitude, or even something simple as feeling the water as you shower or bathe, letting the temperature refresh your skin, noticing the smell of the soap, letting the warmth remind you of God's nearness, and letting the cleansing remind you of His mercy. These ordinary moments are gifts, gifts from God to slow your home and to steady your soul. If your life feels rushed, you're not alone, but you don't have to stay there. Jesus is still whispering the same invitation today, the invitation my grandmother accepted so often. Come away, be with me, rest a while. Your soul was not designed to live at the speed of this world. You were meant to live at the speed of heaven. Slow down, breathe again. Let Jesus lead you back to peace. If this spoke to your heart, I'd love if you subscribe, and let's walk this unhurried way, Jesus' way, together. Let's take a moment to pause. Our scripture pause for today is Mark 6:31. Come away with me and rest a while. Our breath prayer. You see me, Lord. You give me rest. And our promise to claim, I can slow down because Jesus leads me with peace. I can slow down because Jesus leads me with peace.